Mike, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. We are so glad that you could join us here at Axios House in Chicago during the DNC. I'm Niala Boodhoo. I'm the host and editor of the Axios weekly podcast, One Big Thing. And this next conversation is actually going to be on the podcast this week. So I'm going to ask if those in the back can quiet down a little bit, because we are about to start essentially the live taping for the podcast, which also means you should clap very loudly. As I introduce our next guest, please welcome to the Axios stage UAW President Shawn Fain. Thanks for being here. I should have had them play Nelly. That should be your new walk-in song, right?
Yeah, that seemed to go over pretty well. I don't know. I was just kind of rolling with it last night with the crowd, but it just popped in my mind. So, yeah, but a great American poet, Nelly.
So, Shawn, let's get straight into it. When we think about the rough estimates of UAW members, we know that at least a third in 2016 and 2020 voted for President Trump. You wear T-shirts that say Trump is a scab, so I think we know how you feel about the former president. Why do you think that number, though, has been so consistent among UAW membership?
I mean, the number's been consistent going back. I mean, we've got statistics going back to like 2008, and I mean it's pretty been fairly consistent throughout time. Is typically 65 to 32% that identify with Republican candidate. I mean, I think a lot of the I think in 2016 the appeal with Trump was simply that people were looking for something different, and he was just feeding people what they want to hear. And I think Trump is he's a con artist, in my opinion. I think he does a masterful job of telling people what they want to hear and feeding off people's frustration. But that's the one thing we've tried to do going forward is just really speak. The one comparison I do every time I speak to our members and speak to conferences is I do a speech where I talk about this isn't my opinion, this isn't party politics, this is these two people in their own words and actions. It's their body of work. And when you put the body of work side by side, it's a very telling picture for who stands with us and who doesn't. So but there's a plethora of reasons why people vote the way they do, and I mean some over say right to life issues. I mean, some people just have, single issue voters and things like that. So there's, definitely a lot of different reasons. But overall, I mean, a big majority of our members will vote overwhelmingly for Kamala Harris, and that's been the trend, for decades.
So that section of your membership, do you think those votes are gettable? Like, what would you say to them to win them over?
So I think some are, and I think we are turning some people. I mean, I've seen it already.
What are you saying to them, you think?
So that's, going back to the contrast that I do, I basically have a presentation I do at conferences and literally walking them through. And as I tell them, this is not my opinion. This isn't party politics. This is these two people in their own words and actions. And when you go back to the recession, we all know the economic recession in 08, 09 was brought on by, the mortgage crisis and the banks. And but, the auto industry was thrown for a loop. People quit buying cars, naturally, because there were other issues.
Your mic up a little.
And so, looking at that, I mean, at that time, Donald Trump, it's documented. There's video of it, him saying, publicly that he thinks the auto workers and the unions have been very bad for what's going on in the auto industry. I mean, we were, the auto industry was blaming our pensions. They were blaming, wages, things like that, healthcare, as the reason why they were in trouble. And that's a lie. It's just not true. And and then you had, President Obama, Joe Biden, that were, looking for a path forward. They gave us a path forward, to keep going, and at Chrysler particularly. And so that was one issue. I mean, you look at 2015 when Trump ran for president. He actually stated, we need to do a rotation of these good-paying jobs in the Midwest somewhere else where they pay less money, so that these workers will be begging for their jobs back at any rate. That's basically driving a race to the bottom. And you go to when he was president in 2019. He's claiming now that he's this champion for the auto worker and that he cares about working-class people, but several plants were shutting down at that time, and he did nothing to help the situation. He told workers in Lordstown, Ohio, literally told them, don't sell your houses. I'm going to bring the jobs back. And then the plant closed. Workers got sent all over the country, and You know, and so workers were on strike at GM in 2019 when he was president. He did nothing, said nothing. You know,
So this is all in the presentation.
Yes, and so I have slides, and it's slides of him on Fox News or different networks where he's saying these things. It's not you know, me making this up.
So you're actually showing them.
And then I show slides of, you know, Joe Biden. Well, initially I was doing that. Now I'm showing of Kamala Harris. In 2019, when we were on strike at GM, Kamala Harris was on the picket line with GM workers. We have a video we put out showing what Trump said in 19 and what Kamala Harris did in 19. She stood there. She spoke to workers on a picket line. You know, under the Biden administration, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, their whole team worked with us we had a plant not far from here in Belvedere, Illinois, that was closed. In our contract negotiations, we were trying to get product put there, and they went to work with us and with the company to find a way to get product put there, and they did. And so, you know, there's new product that's committed to be placed there. There's a battery plant supposed to be built there. And so, you know, the IRA, I mean, the CHIPS Act, I mean, all those things, you know, Harris, Biden team, I mean, it's things to generate jobs, to create working class jobs. Donald Trump talks about creating jobs, but did nothing. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, they walked the walk. That's why I say that.
So it's an interesting thing. I wonder how you think about misinformation or the bubbles that we're in and how we're consuming information, because it sounds like you've been very deliberate about trying to show people just sort of like, this is what they're saying. Yeah. And do you feel like that is the only effective way to sort of counter different narratives that are out there?
I think it, so I'm like, I go back to our Big Three contract campaign and our Big Three strike. You know, I'm a visual person. You can tell me things all day long, but you know, when you tell me things, or you know, when I read things, I retain it. But when I can see it for myself, it helps me retain things better. So in our Big Three contract campaign, you know, we used a lot of visuals. You know, that the Big Three had made $250 billion in profits in the last decade, while wages remained stagnant. We actually went backwards $1 an hour in that same time frame. And so, you know, when you put those things out there and people see it, I mean, you know, 75% of America supported us in that fight, and for that reason, because most working class Americans, union or not, are living the same reality. We've seen this massive income inequality continue to grow, and you know, the wealthy keep taking the profits, and the working class people that generate it keep remaining stagnant or sliding along and struggling. And so it's typically, to me, it's the same thing. We're just trying to give people visuals to actually see for themselves. This isn't just me saying this. This isn't an opinion. This is these people in their own words and actions. And to me, you know, as I say, talk's cheap. I mean, actions speak louder than words. And so, you know, there are other things, you know, media, things like that. But at the end of the day, we're bombarded with so much now in this polarizing political structure we're in right now that, you know, it's for me, it's just, I think it's better that we put the information out there, we use facts, and we push it that way. And I've seen the effect already. It's definitely, it impacts people. So
as you're talking about a visual, I'm thinking you last night helped kick things off for the DNC. Your Teamsters counterpart, Sean O'Brien, was notably the first Teamsters leader to address the RNC, and told my Axios colleagues yesterday that he feels now that he's been ghosted by the DNC here. Do you have a problem with him addressing the RNC?
No, I don't have a problem. I mean, I personally wouldn't have, because I don't feel like the party really stands with or identifies with our principles. But, you know, I think he was trying to address, just as you asked the first question about a percentage of our members that may vote Republican, I think he was trying to, you know, somehow address that and look at a way to do that. But, you know, at the end of the day, I go back to 1980 when Reagan became president. I mean, the air traffic controllers, PATCO, endorsed President Reagan, and so did the Teamsters, and we saw how that worked out for labor, not real well. And so, you know, to me, it's, you know, actions go further with me, and the proof's in the body of work. And until the Republican Party or those candidates display the fact that they stand with working class people, it's going to be a struggle for me to endorse that. So, but you know, I give him credit for going into the belly of the beast and actually speaking about working class issues, but I don't really think it swayed anybody as far as.
Well, it's an interesting point, right? It was striking to me that Vice President Harris last week released a series of proposals, a $6,000 child tax credit, no taxing on tips, and that the Trump campaign is actually saying, hey, they're copying us. So regardless of how you feel about the Trump campaign, I want to ask how you feel about both parties agreeing to these proposals that could really help working class voters.
Well, I mean, that is it's a fine example. I mean, but I guess that's what I would say. That's one example you can give me of Donald Trump supporting working class people. And, you can almost say the same thing there. Like, Trump says a lot of things that he's going to do or that he supports, but he had the opportunity to do that when he was president, and what did he do with it? I mean, so it's shallow with me. The fact that Harris and him saw that and adopted that, I mean, view it how you want to view it. I mean, at the end of the day, I know one thing: workers in that industry have been left behind. They are scraping to get by. My daughter's a chef, by the way, and has two degrees, culinary arts, pastry arts, but she's been working as a chef for 9 years now, and doesn't make really good wages, and it's a struggle. So I know in that industry what people go through. And it's important we have that issue addressed. So I'm glad that both candidates agree with that. But there's a hell of a lot more work to be done than just that. I mean, we've got to create, a system. We used to manufacture everything in this country. The clothing industry. We used to make in the early '70s. We manufactured 96% of the clothes were made here in America that we sold here. Now it's like less than 3%. We've had whole industries disappear. The auto industry, we've lost millions of jobs, with these trade agreements and things. So, and that's where, I just look at, who's creating jobs right now. Under the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, the hundreds of billions of dollars that the Biden administration, Harris administration have put into this economy. And there's, over 30 battery plants there's 6 currently operating in the United States. There's upwards of 30 when they're completed in the next 5 years. It'll be running in this country. I mean, that's how you create jobs in America. And they're standard-setting jobs. We bargained a great contract at the Altium battery plant in Lordstown, Ohio, just recently. So we're looking at setting the standard. And they put provisions in that in order to do that. So, that to me is what matters. I mean, they're bringing manufacturing back. Trump talked about bringing manufacturing back when he was president, did nothing. Biden and Harris have done that.
As we're talking about jobs, I wanted to ask you, you addressed last night that Stellantis was going back on a production commitment they had made. This is a mid-sized truck factory here in Belvidere, Illinois. I know Stellantis did respond this morning and said that it was critical that the business case for all investments be aligned with market conditions.
Yeah.
But then they said they stand firmly behind the commitments they've made. Is that good enough for you?
No, because they don't. First off, they've backed the commitment up to our next contract after our contract expires. So if you
what year is that?
2028.
Okay,
So
which is when the plant was supposed to be built by.
The plant is supposed to be built by it's supposed to be operational by 2027.
Okay.
Right now, they've backed it up past that expiration. So when it's into our next contract, literally, if you bargain for something in a contract and it doesn't take place, you bargain for nothing. You're not honoring that agreement. So we expect them to honor the commitment they made. And it's interesting to me when they bring up this market conditions situation right now. I don't know if anybody paid attention, but GM just made $4.4 billion this last quarter. Ford's doing well. And the interesting part is market conditions apply to working class people and to the workers, auto workers, when the company wants to find an excuse to not honor their commitment. But it sure as hell didn't apply to Carlos Tavares when he gave himself a 56% pay increase this last year from $22 million to $39.5 million. So if market conditions are bad, how the hell can he afford to more than double his salary?
You have talked about this campaign being a war on corporate greed, something Kamala Harris has started saying as well. Do you feel like you can maybe claim credit for her incorporating that exact language into her stump speeches now?
Look, I mean, we've been very open about that for the past year and a half and been talking about it a lot. I mean, I hope, I'd like to say we've had some influence in that, but I just believe, I look at, and I say this every time I speak, I look at Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, I look at working class people, I know where I came from, and working class people can look at them and they can see themselves. I can't look at a Donald Trump and see myself. I'm sorry. I mean, I wish I wish I was born into that kind of wealth and I just had everything handed to me, I guess. But actually, I probably don't.
Do you?
I guess I probably don't. I'm glad that I had the struggle I've had because, you know, I mean, it's made me who I am. So, you know, but I think that's the difference. Kamala Harris, you know, talks about her first job at McDonald's. I mean, that matters. That creates, it builds character. It teaches you the value of work and what people go through in that struggle. And, you know, Tim Walz as a teacher. I mean, we've seen the teaching profession. Public education's been attacked. It's been decimated for decades in this country. And it should be one of the highest paid professions we have. And it's insane to me that we talk about how we value people, we value education, but we don't put any value into education. And my sister was a school teacher for 20 plus years. She left the profession because she had 3 kids. She could not afford to live. And it's a shame. They kept cutting. And finally she's like, I can't do this anymore. I cannot afford to live. And so, you know, I believe people look at Kamala Harris, they look at Tim Walz, and they can see themselves, and they see, you know, people that understand our issues and understand the struggle, and they want to fix that. They want to work on that. And that you're going to get someone that's been there and done that is sure as hell going to do a lot better job of representing people than someone that's never been there and has no idea what the hell it's even like.
Shawn, that said, how do you see organized labor holding a Harris-Walz administration accountable for rebuilding, as you're saying, the system where teachers are valued, where people are paid living wages?
Well, I mean, I think you know, it's a start. I mean, we also have to elect a Congress that's willing to, you know, pass legislation. I mean, you know, unfortunately with, you know, ALEC and groups like that basically, you know, cram horrible laws for people, you know, through their Republican legislators at the state level and elsewhere down our throats. You know, we've got a battle ahead of us, but we've got to go to work. This isn't just about electing the president and vice president. It's about electing senators and representatives and even to the state level. And working class people, we've really got to, I believe organized labor's role in this is we have to organize people. We have to bring people together, and we have to get them on point with what the issues are. Because I said this last night, and I say this a lot when I speak also. I mean, the one thing that the corporate class has done very well, and the billionaire class is, you know, they play the oldest game in the book very well, divide and conquer. You know, they divide us over, you know, race, over who somebody loves. You know, this manufactured border crisis they talk about now that I'm sorry. I mean, I look at that. I don't see rapists and murderers and invaders. They're not invading our nation. They're human beings, and they're destitute and desperate human beings. And I see those people, and I see my grandparents. My grandparents went through a Great Depression. And my grandma Fain was left in an orphanage with her siblings during the Depression by their parents because they couldn't take care of them. They were dispersed, you know, different places. You know, my grandparents, when I was raised, I mean, they moved north. They migrated north from Tennessee and Kentucky, and they got jobs at GM and Chrysler, and it changed their lives. They lived the American dream. And so I look at those people at the border, and I don't see invaders and rapists and murderers. I see destitute and desperate people, just like my grandparents were. The only difference is they're crossing a federal line to try to find a better life. And, you know, and that's the other thing about, you know, I didn't talk about this, but I wish I could have had time to do it last night. But, you know, we got a political party that wants to hold up the Bible, and they want to wrap themselves in the American flag and talk about patriotism. And every damn thing they do is against that. I'm sorry, but you don't tell me about religion.
Which is something that you have, I mean, especially during the strike. You were very vocal about your faith. Why is it important for you to incorporate that into your work?
Well, I believe the Democrat Party should embrace it. I believe, you know, I think some people are, you know, don't like talking about religion. I think it makes some people uncomfortable. But look.
But you've talked about like your daily devotionals.
Yeah, I do a daily reading every day when I get. First thing I do when I get up, I do a daily reading and I pray. And I'll tell you, I have a very strong faith. But. You know, to me, you know, that's the irony of this party that wants to claim that, you know, they are the party of religion. I mean, literally, every religion I know of is founded in one principle. It's love of your fellow human being. And, I mean, you know, in the Christian Bible that I read. I mean, when Jesus was tested by the lawyer, what's the most important commandment, and he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. And the second one is like it, love your neighbor as yourself, meaning love your fellow human being. I don't know how anyone can claim that that is their faith, that is their belief, and they sit here and call destitute and desperate people rapists and murderers and stay the hell out of my country. That is not a Christian thing to do. And so every religion I know of is founded in that core belief that, it's founded on love of your fellow human beings. So, and that to me is what this is all about. We're on this earth. Our job, my job as a labor leader, is to unite people, is to bring people together, it's to lift everyone up, not three people at the top, three families at the top in America have as much wealth as the bottom 50% of Americans. That is a crisis. That's the crisis. There's not a border crisis.
So I've noticed that the UAW has a recent solidarity project, as we're talking about this, with Mexican auto workers. You all have issued statements of support for Brazilian workers. Is that what's behind that?
You bet. No, yeah. We want to lift the standard up everywhere. We're working with unions all over the globe right now. But obviously, with Mexico and what's went on there, the exploitation of those workers. There's seating factories there that pay workers $2 a day. It's insane, and they bust these workers in. I go back to my grandpa from Tennessee, my grandpa Carter, and his dad was a miner in early 1900s in Tennessee, and they got paid in company script. They didn't get paid money. They got paid in company script, and it was good at the company store. I mean, you lived in company housing, and if you didn't do what the hell you were told, you were kicked off. I mean, you look at what's going on in Mexico. These factories that the big three and other companies locate down there, they bus workers in. They feed them a meal and stuff, but their life is completely controlled by the company, and they're paying them, $3, $5, things like that a day or a week, and it's insane and it's criminal. So we are engaging some of the new labor unions down there and working with them and trying to support them. I know some of the unions, Unifor in Canada are also, and Industrial from Europe are also working with us, and so we're actually assigning organizing staff down there to help these workers do better.
Shawn, we're almost out of time, but I would be a bad former labor reporter if I didn't ask you how the organizing campaign is going at Tesla.
Yeah, so I mean, literally, it's not just Tesla. It's all the original equipment manufacturing companies, all the non-union auto companies, but also, as I said earlier, we just got a great contract at the Ultium battery plant in Lordstown, Ohio, and we're looking to take that throughout the battery industry. So there's literally 26 to 28 more battery plants being built right now or coming online right now. So we're organizing like hell all over this country. So obviously Tesla's in our sights, but I think everybody's craving that fight. But
are you?
I mean, we want to look. We just want to bring justice to workers everywhere.
Right.
I mean, that's what the fight is.
What do you think about when it's like you're taking on Elon Musk?
Well, I don't look at it that way because I don't. It's not. This isn't about me, and it's not about Elon Musk. I know Musk and Trump and people like that. They want to make everything about themselves. This is about people, and it's about humanity, and it's about leaving this world better than we find it. So to me, this it's not about me, and I don't view it that way. So I'm not doing this to take on Elon Musk. I'm doing this. We're doing this to try to bring justice to workers and just a better standard of living, and that's what it's all about. I mean, work brings dignity to people. We hear a lot in this country every time there's a shooting or something bad happens. They always want to talk about mental health. We use that as a phrase now, the mental health issue, but we don't ask what is a contributing factor to this issue. And we've got to get deep into this and start talking about the fact that, when people go to work, they go to work, it gives them a sense of dignity. It gives them a sense of independence. But when you're working 2 and 3 jobs and you're scraping to get by paycheck to paycheck, when you're working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and at the end of the week you can't pay your bills, there's a sense of hopelessness people get. And so to me, this whole mental health crisis we talk about, I think that's just a catchphrase anymore, and we're not really digging into the causes behind that. So I think we really got to talk more about that, and I think that's what you want to solve a lot of problems in this country. Drug abuse, alcohol abuse, spousal abuse, crime. When people have good jobs and they can live a decent life, those numbers will go down. Yeah, I mean, when they have a sense of hopelessness, I mean, those things all go up. And so that to me is our mission, is to bring hope to people and turn this situation around. We have the means to do it. There's obscene wealth in this nation. We're the wealthiest nation in the world, and there's no excuse that working class people are having to live like they have to live in this country.
Shawn, thank you for taking time to be with us today. At Axios, we like to end on one fun thing. So I just want to ask about who picks the T-shirt selection every day?
So we look. So the Trump is a scab thing. I started talking about that quite a while back, and I actually wanted to make a T-shirt that said Trump is a scab.
Oh, so that was your idea to make the T-shirt?
So that was my idea. The shirt was, but we just came up with some more themes. For the week, we'll be wearing a different T-shirt each day. So we'll switch. I don't really like having Trump in big letters on my body. It's kind of hard. So we'll be switching that up tomorrow. You'll see bigger Harris letters the next few days. So.
All right. UAW President Shawn Fain, thank you so much for being with us.